Can you check all places? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from MIndPlore with Carla and Friends, and we are using a new platform, and I'm all excited about it. And we are share to the group, please. And we are excited today to get into our new MIndPlore platform so we can share out to many places, and we can also use Zoom, which makes many people happy because when we're using Zoom, it works all over. Anyway, having said that, today we are talking about our own minds. Do we create our worlds in our mind, or does the world create our mind? Personally, I believe our mind is, we create our worlds in our mind. So if we want a peaceful world, we need to be peaceful inside. Having said that, Jeannie, like normal, go to it. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention, I have a great team today. I have Jeannie Alford here, who I met through Cynthia Stott, and she's wonderful. I have Asma Tariq, who everyone knows because she comes and she helps me with all of my problems when it comes to when it comes to this. We have Pastor Billy, my old friend who has been coming and joining us, and Victor, who's my new friend. And I'm so happy to have him as part of this. And Gayatri, very brand new to me. And we're just going to sit and talk about how we create the world, or does the world create us? And Jeannie, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. Actually, I think we represent all phases of the day here, or as I used to say in my older life, we've got the follow the sun strategy going on. Somebody's here at every phase of the sun. And I agree with Carla, this is going to be a great discussion because it's all about thoughts and attitudes and how we change the world just by being the shining lights that we can be. And that there's a law called the law of mind action. What you think reproduces outward in the world. So we can make changes with this philosophy. We can make changes in our world just by changing how we think. And we talked a little bit about this in the last couple of weeks. So if you're interested, go back and see some of the earlier conversations where we talked about the importance of being vulnerable, the importance of taking risk, and last week, the importance of growing your confidence. These all fit into, as Victor, I hope, would agree, the attitude that sets you up for success. And the more that we can talk about it and recognize it and help others talk about it and recognize it, the more we can send some really good healing waves out. Because as we can change ourselves, we can start to change people around us, and they can start changing people around them. So it's a monstrously big possibility, let's say, and we all have a role to play.
Wonderful. And that role is what keeps us going and makes our lives what it is. And it's very exciting. Having said that, who should we ask about this next, Jeannie?
I was going to throw it over to Victor with his, his focus on your attitude and how that plays with this subject.
we're
So did you
reading each
did you just
other.
throw it over to me? Is that what you just did?
Yeah, well,
No,
I was golfing, so I was going to do a little chip shot for you.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll wait.
No, it's up to you now. The thoughts in our minds and the attitudes that we bring into the world, what, how does that play with your philosophy and what you've been talking about?
Well, that's exactly my philosophy, and I'll preface my remarks with one of my favorite truisms, which is, to those that believe, truth, proof is unnecessary. To those that believe, whatever you want to talk about, if you believe this or you believe that, you don't need any proof. You believe it. Got it? And to those that don't believe, proof is actually impossible. Now, if you don't believe that, you think about some of the times you've had in your life when you have a clear picture of what's going on and you're trying to share it with someone and you can see it so clearly and they just are still arguing or still debating, still discussing. Well, the truth is that they just don't believe what you're saying. And if you don't believe something, you don't believe something. And you might think, well, belief is just a form of thinking, right? When we talk about our thoughts, when you combine the stuff that we think, we get a belief. So what you believe is actually more effective. It's more useful than actually what the truth is. Because sometimes when people tell you the truth, you don't believe them, right? And if you don't believe them, then you do certain things. And if you believe them, you do certain other things. So by doing and responding to what you believe is what makes your world. For instance, I'm here with the rest of you, and without appearing too arrogant, I'm not really that surprised because I've been thinking about this sort of thing for years. I've been thinking about being able to impact the world. I've been thinking about being able to influence leaders, influence other people who influence people. Because the general public, and I mean this in the nicest of ways, what I think and what I believe and how I roll, it might not be palatable to some of the people that you know. But how I think and how I roll while being filtered through how you are, as you share it with the people in your life, it'll be a lot more palatable. So the fact that I'm here, proof positive. My thoughts has created my world. And I'm having a fantastic time doing it. Now watch me demonstrate one of my most recently acquired skills. I worked very hard at this next skill you're going to see, and it'll probably surprise you, but I'm actually going to be quiet for a moment.
really? Are you capable of doing that? Okay, we have Gayatri here who is new to the panel, and we want her to introduce herself. And Gayatri, you're a little late, but you know that we're talking about whether the world creates itself or do we create it in our thoughts. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gayatri, and I'm a meditation coach. World around us, I believe, is it's a result of our manifestations. What we visualize, what we think. I wouldn't go to an extent to call it a result of affirmations as much as I would call it as a result of us focusing all our energy and thinking about that one thing that we want to happen around us. We were created by that supreme power. And after that, it was up to us what we made of the world. Would we say that we made the world that we are living in? We did. After all the civilizations, we human beings take the credit for it. Everything that is happening around, we go on the moon, we take the credit. We go to Mars, we take the credit. Point being that yes, the world around us We have created it. But then has the world created us? I would like all of you to think back. How do you think? How is your mind conditioned? You behave according to the way your mind is conditioned. And who conditions your mind? Society, the world around you. Most of your behavior, most of your conduct, it's a result of the conditioning of mind that you have. So then is it right to say that the world created you? Not from the scratch, but the walking, talking you, the behavior that you have, your actions to a large extent, yes, created by the world, because you like it or not, it remains the fact that 80% of the things that we do it for the approval, for the validation from the world we are living in. Knowingly, unknowingly, subconsciously. For instance, Evelyn here is wearing a jacket. Victor here is wearing a jacket. Why? Because image consultants say that adding a third layer gives you a good look. Yes, adding a third layer. Whoever thought about it? From what I saw during my spiritual journey in the ruralmost parts of the world, they don't care. Most of them don't even care about covering their upper part of the body. They wear something around their waist. The newer generation who is becoming civilized is concerned about hiding their upper part of the body. The problem is that we are trying to cover our bodies because the world that we have created and whatever world has created us, our souls are naked. We are so naked from inside that we need all those third layers and fourth layers and all the makeup to hide the nakedness of our soul. So have we created the world? Yes, we did. But today what we are we created by world? Oh yes, we are. Carla.
Thank you, Gayatri. What a wonderful way to begin. I'm so glad you joined us. But I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak a little. You're new. Pastor Billy, you're muted.
All right, no, I'm on. Hey everyone, and
Hey.
Gayatri, good to see you. And I'm a regular here on MIndPlore. And Carla, thank you for this great discussion. And yeah, as a pastor and someone that is in front of people a lot, one of the great teaching opportunities that I take every day is to say either we influence the world or the world influences us. So let me repeat that for our listeners and viewers. Either we, as individuals and people, influence the world or the world influences us. Now, let me break that down quickly before we go on to others. And I think some of you have said this already, but it's okay, put an R in there. All right. Gayatri. All right, we got it. Okay, welcome. We're glad you're here. And so, how do we influence the world? Well, we influence the world by taking risk. And we've done a MIndPlore on the whole issue of taking risks. Because, most people in the world, think about it. Most people in the world, they're concerned about what? They're concerned about security, safety, and comfort, right? That's SSC. Most people are concerned about being safe, being secure, and being comfortable. Who likes to be unsafe? Who likes to be insecure? And who likes to be uncomfortable, right? None of us. But that's really taking in the world influencing me. Well, the influence of the world many times is not good. It's negative. And so what we need to do is we need to be positive. And those of us who are leaders in whatever country we're in or whatever faith we represent, we must influence the world rather than the world influencing us. And so that's what I'm all about as a follower of Jesus Messiah. That's why I go to 17 countries around the world, leaving for Afghanistan in 2 weeks. And so why am I going there? Well, I'm going there to influence the world. We all know what we see on the news, right? On whatever news channel we watch. We know what's going on. Well, for good reasons, for good purposes, how can we influence a place like Afghanistan? Well, I'm going to go there to advocate for the protection of girls, women, and minorities. So that's a case in praxis, in practical parlance of influencing the world rather than cowering down and being controlled by the world, because not everything that the world tells us is good. I mean, when we look at the status of girls and women worldwide, the world tells us it's not good, right? The status of girls and women. So what can we do? Well, that's where we need to go outside of ourselves. We need to be uncomfortable and we need to influence the world. So I'm a big proponent of let's influence the world. Thanks.
Now, Pastor Billy, and I'm going to throw it over to Asma after it. Do your thoughts influence how you think in the world? Or does the world influence your thoughts? If you're thinking positively, will that change the world you create?
Can you hear
Okay.
me? Okay, I'm clear.
Yeah, just I want Pastor Billy to answer that quickly and then I'm moving to you. Pastor Billy, did you understand my question?
Yeah, well, you're right. And we need to think, yes, I did. We need to think good thoughts, right? And we need to be careful because the world will influence us with negative thoughts. People, right? Our family, our friends, our colleagues, even strangers, they'll influence us with negative thoughts. So we always need to be about positive thinking. And we discussed this last week on MIndPlore about self-talk. How am I talking to myself? If I say that, for example, say if I say I cannot influence the world, well, guess what? I mean, if Victor says, oh, I can't influence the world, if Ozma says I can't, or if Jeannie or Gayatri says, well, I cannot influence the world, well, that's a negative thought. So we need to be positive and we need to say to ourselves, I can influence the world. I can change the world. So everybody on this call and those listening and viewing, we should be world changers based upon what's going on up here. So that's my response, Carla.
Thank you. Asma, we did it.
Yes. And are you happy?
I'm happy, but let's talk about the subject now.
Yes.
Do we create our world in our thoughts, or does the world create our thoughts?
Yes, this is a very important question, and this is, we usually just go through this question. But before that, I just want to share a quote. And the quote is that if you ever realize how powerful your thoughts are, you would never think a negative thought. So this means there is an effect. There is an effect of thought. On the other hand, if we think about the human mindset, there are in this creation there are two kind of mindset. The one mindset is innate, where the organism responds, where the animal, where the creation responds to anything, to a cue without a prior response. There no experience is required. But on the other side, when we look in the about the human, about the behavior of, when we study about the behavior of human, we got there are very few, responses where the innate behavior is required. Most of the things are based on learning behavior, which means when a human child is born, he actually knows nothing. But if their dog is born and if their cat is born, even if there is no mother, there is no father, with the passage of time, they have the behavior, God has given them the innate ability that they know how to respond to the circumstances, to the environment, and they respond accordingly. But in case of human, we have different behaviors, and it depends on the society to society. It varies society to society. But we can't say we can't learn. We always learn in this, because when we born, we didn't know. With the passage of time, we learn something. With the passage of time, we learn other things. With the passage of time, we learn other things, and we realize the thoughts, the ideas we learned in the childhood was not important. Then we unlearn them. So this means, yes, in somehow our environment or society has an influence on us. But on the last and on the other hand, there is a check in the human mind. Human they can decide either they want it or not. They can decide it. So there we need to decide. There we need to realize the power of our thoughts, which usually we don't know that. There we have a lot of ways. We have meditation, manifestation. These powers, we can use these powers and we can change the world. Even there is also a quote, everything is energy. Everything is energy, so we can change the world through the power of our thoughts, through meditation, through manifestation. But for that, the most important thing is that we need to really understand the power of thought. We need to understand how our mindset works, what is neuroplasticity, and how the things are weird. And I believe that most of the people are unaware with the basic concept. They don't think. They are just with that, we can't do. We are just dependent on the society. So whatever our parents given us, whatever the society given us, now this is the future. Now this is end. So which is not the reality.
Okay. So the reality, let me get this straight. The reality is what we have in our mind and we project into the world. Do I have that correct from you?
Exactly. It's our thoughts, it's our mind, the way it works, the way it want to look, things would look like the same. There are a lot of, it is an interesting story I want to share, because when I wanted to take admission in the university, there some people said me in the university, there only the wrong things happen. There is only vulgarity, there is no good thing. So when I went to the university, I think I never see a thing which is negative. I never meet a people who is negative. So I didn't see any negativity. But before going there, I just listened that there is only negativity, there is only wrong things are going on in the university. But I didn't see, because I never went there to see the negativity. I only looked the positivity. So I got the positivity.
Thank you. Victor, you look like you're about to talk.
There's just so much to unpack about what she has said. And
Yeah.
the last thing that she said about negativity, it just reminds me of what happened yesterday. I was reading on social media, examining what my friends say, what they don't say. And one of my friends was talking about doing a seminar on how to deal with difficult people. How do you deal with difficult people? Now, here's what's interesting for me. Even though my friend is a speaker and he's a trainer, he's difficult. Okay? He himself is difficult. And as I thought about what he's writing, I'm thinking, Victor, you haven't met a difficult person in a long time. And I really haven't. So, in terms of drawing in what you're looking for, that makes total sense to me because I wasn't always the type of person that didn't meet difficult people. In fact, I can remember being on the telephone with tech support for one reason or another, and symbolically, I'm standing up in my chair hollering to the top of my voice trying to get what I want, right? And it's because of what I was attracting, was because of what I was. So if we would treat our thoughts like they were seeds and cherry pick the thoughts, right? Just keep the ones that bring us value and get rid of the ones that don't. I think that the stuff that we attract into our life I think the quality of it will increase. And that's what it seems like has happened to me. And that's one of the thoughts that I pick, that I keep. I keep the thought that says, what you think about, you bring about. And so since I keep that thought, what you think about, you bring about, I am very careful about the thoughts that I keep. I am vigilant. In fact, sometimes people send me media, send me information, and the title might say something that other than, wow, Victor, you're going to love this. Because if I'm not going to love it, I'm probably not going to consume it. So I don't even allow it in. I am so vigilant. It's being married to a guy like me is really a struggle because I'm like this all the time. And you really don't want to be around somebody that's like this all the time because it makes them seem like they're not real. But I am actually real, and I am vigilant about the thoughts I hold, and it is my desire to infect as many people with that point of view as possible, because if more people only kept the thoughts that serve them, we'd have fewer people doing heinous things. Because people that do heinous things, they don't feel a part of anything. They don't feel like nobody loves them. They don't feel like anybody cares for them. So the minute you find yourself feeling like somebody's taking advantage of you, the minute you find yourself feeling like things are not going your way, that's the time to put up the wall and stop that thought, because it ain't going to do anything for you. And once again, I will demonstrate my most recent skill and be quiet. Unless, of course, you force me to keep talking.
I was having trouble finding my mute button for a moment.
That was the chance you took. I was going again. I was back on the train.
You're doing so well. I don't want to stop you.
Yeah, we love to hear you talk, Victor. We love to hear you talk. So,
well, we have that in common because I love to hear me talk too. Which reminds me of a story. Okay, here's the story right here. Right. Once upon a time, I didn't think that I sounded okay. I can recall many times in my life I thought my voice was weird. I thought I looked strange on camera. And this is after I had been studying all the stuff like Bob Proctor, all the ministry. I've been studying all these things that told me I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I was God's greatest creation. All these things that was being said about me, but I still didn't feel like it was true. So I reasoned in my infinite wisdom that if I didn't feel like what they were saying was true, then it must have been something inside me, inside my subconscious mind, because studying the subconscious mind was part of my forte. So I got a little silver lap counter. If you've ever been to a track meet, there's this little silver thing, and when they press the lever down, the number advances. So when you're counting things, you press this lever down and the number advances. So I got one of those lap counters and spending time around home. And during the course of the day, for at least 100 times, because I used to count it, right? At least 100 times, I'd be like, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. Now, imagine how you would feel if somebody said to you on a daily basis 100 times, Pastor, I love you. Gayatri, I love you. Asma, I love you. Carla, I love you. Jeannie, I love you.
I say that to my wife 100 times a day.
And there you have, so it has an impact on whoever you're directing it to, and I was directing it at me. And you know, the odd thing happened. I went from one extreme to the other because not only did I get over the fact that I sounded weird, I got over the fact that I looked weird on camera. I realized that that was just something that I was thinking, that nobody was looking at me going, God, I wish I didn't have to look at him. I mean, nobody was doing that. Nobody was listening to me going, God, why doesn't he shut up? Those were things that was going on inside my head. So after 6, 7 year doing this, I suddenly didn't sound bad anymore. I didn't look bad anymore. In fact, I went to the opposite extreme because just as I've said to you today, I don't know why you'd want to do anything else except listen to me. Why would you want to see anything else than me? And embracing that and knowing that about myself, it's not as unattractive as you would think, because that's what I really feel. It becomes unattractive when you embrace something that's not you, when you do something that's fake, because you can be and do anything you want to, but what you think about it is really going to tell the story as to whether or not it's going to be a good experience or a bad experience. Okay, all right, I'll chill.
You know, now that you said that, that brings up a point in my mind. And I say this all the time in the English show. If you think you can't speak English, you're not going to be able to. But if you think you can do it, then you can do it. And that goes with everything in life. If you're thinking negatively about yourself and you're mean to yourself, how can you be kind to someone else? I know myself, I am changing my thinking. I'm changing my way of looking at things and not being as mean to myself as I have been in the past. So maybe we should kind of go on that topic and hear what other people have to say about being kind to themselves or by being mean, and how it reflects in their outer world. And Jeannie, you look like you want to say something.
I want to say a lot, but I want to cherry pick as it was mentioned. First, I want to acknowledge that most people don't like change, and when I'm changing, people around me do things to pull me back, to get me back to where they're comfortable with me. And I've experienced this several times in my lifetime where I'm trying to make a big change, and people who are close, that I love, that are very influential to me, do things that make me second guess myself. And that's the influence from the outer world. The influence that we have to have from our inner world is having the fortitude to step forward and make the change, and to gently confront those who are trying to resist our change by asking them to watch me blossom and please support me in this growth. And that's really important, because as we try to manifest outwardly what's going on inwardly, we need to have people support us. There's so much, we talked a little bit about negativity, and there's so much negative out there, especially in areas like social media. A study from 10 years ago, before social media exploded, had said that we got 34 gigabytes of information thrown at us through digital media. That was before Facebook exploded. It was out there. YouTube was out there, but they hadn't really taken hold. 34 gigabytes works out to 100,000 words, or about the size of a Stephen King novel, plus 7 hours of video. That's how much stuff comes at us. And if we look at social media and we only focus on the negativity, we're kind of sunk. And the same thing happens in our mind. We have so many thoughts that come through. I believe Gayatri talked about 80% we don't even notice. It's the 20% that we need to focus in on. And if you can focus in on the more positive and allow yourself to have the affirmations to remind yourself that you are valuable, you are wonderful, you are loved, if people want to hear you, then that's going to help your outlook. And the law of mind action that I was talking about, what you think reproduces outwardly does actually work. And one of the first changes I did was I stopped watching really scary movies, because why would I pay to have somebody scare me like that? I started to think about what are the things that I'm putting in my head. And I noticed when I look at Twitter, everybody, something happens, you see the ones where they blast, because the negative bubbles up to the top much faster than the positive. So every aspect of our life, we have to cherry pick and be brutal in that cherry picking. I call it discernment. You have to discern what it is that will support you and what won't. And you need to, well, if you grow roses, you have to be somewhat brutal in how you cut them back so that they can grow and be beautiful. So we need to prune ourselves, our thoughts, and look at those ones, highlight those ones. Now, that said, I also believe when you look at your thoughts, you have to integrate those negative ones, because they're there for a reason. Sometimes it's there to keep you safe. You may not think about it, but mom and dad told us we can't run into the street for a reason. And so sometimes you might hear, I think last week I told you that I have a voice that's always telling me, don't do that, or stop doing that, or who do you think you are trying that? And I named that voice Dad, because that's kind of the way he spurred me forward in his, it took me a while to understand that was his way of love, his love language, if you will. So I listen to that voice, and then I say, I've got this, because I have to understand if I need to be careful. And I've recognized that that's one of those intuitive things. When it comes up and I start to feel it in my belly, and I hear it, and it's like, don't do that, and I start to get a little bit of a jitter, I think, oh, I better listen. So you need to integrate some of that negativity in the way that understanding what it's trying to tell you, so that you can be the positive force in the world. There are things that we need to learn, that we learned that from our parents and from the society around, as Gayatri mentioned, that influence us. But that's when we were children. And there's a switch that happens in adulthood that I don't think anybody sat down with me and said, you need to flip the switch and be an adult. It would be nice if that could happen. Just, turn it on, turn it off. But it doesn't happen that way. But what I found as I blossomed in my adulthood is that I had to look at what did I learn as a child that supported me, but doesn't support me now. And I'll tell you, one of the things that was really difficult for me was the relationship I had with my mother, for example. She spent 18, 19, 20, up to 30 years telling me what to do. My mother was the matriarch. She was the one, all 4'9" of her. She told us all 7 of us, we were little soldiers, and we did not defy mama. However, as I became a mother, I realized I needed to switch that relationship, and that having somebody tell me what to do didn't serve me anymore. And I needed to change that to a more of a friend kind of relationship with my mom, and get her to support me, and get her to take on the grandmother role, which she didn't want to admit to it at first, but she was okay with it. She had 6 lovely grandchildren she loves more than her kids, which all grandparents do. But I had to change that role that I had with her, because it didn't serve me anymore. And all the way through her life till she was 92, she passed last year, we had a much friendlier relationship, and she was more supportive. And those kinds of switches that we do when we realize what we grew up with, what influenced us in growing up, and how we need to change it as we're adults, that's our responsibility. That's our job to do, is to change ourselves. And so cherry picking those thoughts that Victor talked about and cherry picking those behaviors that Gayatri talked about, those helped change us into being able to be the positive influences. And the more that each one of us can influence just 10 people around us and get them to influence just 10 people around them, then it grows and it grows and it grows. I mean, one of the most iconic ads I ever saw was that Breck commercial, I told two friends and she told two friends and so on and so on. I truly believe that's a way of using the law of mind action, to have our thoughts help us reproduce in the world.
Thank you, Jeannie. And I agree. And Gayatri, we didn't want to keep you too quiet.
No, it is not about what we are going out there and doing. A lot depends on what we are doing inside within us. We often talk about all the work that we are doing externally, and we are letting all the external factors affect us. External factors never affect externally, they affect internally, and we are extremely unaware about how they are affecting us. Most important task for any human being is to understand whether your mind is being conditioned or being awakened. The moment you realize that your mind is being conditioned, you got to put a stop sign because it's a red flag. You do not want to continue on that path. Those people are toxic, alienate them. You are not missing out on anything. And if it is society, then you just wear a raincoat and let the society's all the norms be like rain falling on the raincoat, not touching your body, not touching yourself. But if there is somebody who is helping you awaken yourself, it might be a very painful process, because when you are becoming awakened, when you are becoming aware, you realize your mistakes as well. And that is not a good feeling. I'll be very honest. For example, Pastor, if I do something to you, or let's say you do something to me, you beat me up, or you do something really very bad to me, I can forgive you. You know why? Because I'm a bigger person. I'm a bigger person. I'm a divine being. I have learned about forgiveness and power of forgiveness, so I'll forgive you. The problem arises when I do something bad to you, and on my path of spirituality, I realize that I have done something bad to you. And then the process of forgiving myself begins. And that is very difficult than the forgiveness that I have to give to you.
I have a question about forgiveness. Are we forgiving for the other person, or are we forgiving for ourselves?
Which is exactly what I was talking about, Carla, and that is exactly what I was explaining with the example, wherein I just said that if Pastor does something bad to me, I'm a bigger person, I'm a divine being, I'm an enlightened one, I can forgive him. But if I do something bad to him, and I am aware and awakened, and I realize, oh my God, what did I do? Then it is very difficult to forgive yourself. Because now, what happens is, as human beings, we keep ourselves on a pedestal. Hey, I'm good. Hey, I will do no bad. Hey, I will not hurt anybody. And then realizing that, oh my God, we are not living up to our own expectations. One thing is living up to somebody else's expectations. The task is to live up to your own expectations. And when you don't live up to your own expectations, it is very difficult to forgive yourself. Depression is never a product of not living up to somebody else's expectation. Depression is always a product of not being able to live up to your own expectations. So if you are in that toxic environment, if you are in that toxic society where your mind is being conditioned, beware. But if you're being awakened, be there.
I'm mad that you know that already. It took me way longer to find that stuff out.
And Gayatri, I would
Hey,
never do anything
Bhavdeep.
bad to you.
No,
Never,
Pastor, I was just
never,
giving
never.
an example. I was just giving an example. And the reason why I took your name is because you have that suffix called pastor.
Thank you.
Taking your example would make it more effective to say that I am a divine being and I'm forgiving a pastor. That elevates, that increases the intensity rather than doing it with anybody else. That I can forgive a pastor for doing something. And again, you need to understand another thing. When I'm forgiving you, it's in my head that you have done something bad. It does not necessarily mean that you have done something bad.
Yeah,
Human
and let me just,
mind,
yeah,
human mind is conditioned to just believe things, which is what we spoke in the beginning. We spoke about manifestations, we spoke about conditioning. So it is 80% of me believing from whatever society has told me that so and so person is wrong. Who knows whether that person is wrong or not? Who am I to judge?
yeah, and I just want to jump in here with a word, self-examination. Self-examination. And I am always in the mode of self-examination because, you know, and we have a big tribe in the Devlin family. We have 21 people. We have 5 kids, myself and my bride. They're all married, 9 grandchildren. And it's a very complicated, moving family dynamic machine. So as the leader of the family, I'm always self-examining and I'm always saying, hey, is there anything I can do to make this family better? Is there anybody out of the other 20 people that I need to ask forgiveness from and all that? So self-examination, I think it's a great discipline to have. And I always want to be in that mode. So Carla, thank you for letting me jump in.
Of course, that's what we do at this point anyway. Jumping in is important. And just so you know, Gayatri, PB doesn't stand for Pastor Billy. It stands for peanut butter.
Well, actually, no, that's how I always say for people to remember my name, I say that the Pastor Bill, PB like peanut butter, and you put me with Jesus, what do you have? PB and J. So there you go.
There
Okay,
is one thing, yes, Carla, there is just one thing I would like to tell Pastor Billy because he said that he constantly self-examines himself. What happens with me, I mean, what has been happening with me for past 1.5, 2 years is that I've become extremely selfish. Selfish in the sense, I am responsible for my happiness and I'm not responsible for anybody else's sadness. What I feel is my choice.
you know, it's very interesting you say that, and I'm not going to get into details, but I was texting with a very dear friend today, and we were talking about some very intimate stuff. And he came back to something I said, and I said, but that's my issue, not yours. And he said, well, stay out of my life. And I said, no, because we're already in each other's lives. And we need to realize that when we are working with anyone or dealing with anyone, we are so involved in the lives of that person that we need to bring that joy, and everyone has that joy within them, but they forget. So we need to stop forgetting it's there and realize it's there by putting your smile on and laughing. Those are the greatest antidepressants. And Asma, you look like you have something on your mind.
Yes,
Other than keeping me on straight with Free Street.
yeah. This mind always has something, but the important thing is what is in it. Yeah, we are discussing the very important things, and I really like the conversation that Gayatri said, and then what Pastor Bill said, self-accountability. I call it self-accountability. What he said, self-examination, and that's very important for the improvement in your life, for the development. That's really helpful. But I just want to share a process that I recognize. Like usually, what happened with our thoughts? Why we are not gonna? If someone wants to change the thoughts, and they are in a trouble that our environment is not good enough, and we are in the influence of our environment. So what should we do? So I'm sharing just the process, what we can do. If you want to share, if you want to change your thoughts, what at first we need to do, we need to change our environment. Now, we always said our environment is not under our control, but it is. How we can control our environment? For that, we need to change the conversation. This is an important point. Conversations. If we put focus on this conversation word, we always do the same kind of conversation. There are some people who do the same kind of discussion. Whenever you talk somebody, and every time you get the same thing, same stuff, and after that your mind is just like, why I called? But there is some person whom you called, and there the conversation just blow you up. It affects. So this means conversation have the effect. Even we, the self conversation is very important. We always do the same kind of conversation with ourselves. As I'm not good enough, I can't do. My mother said, you are not enough able. My friends always laughed at me. I can't, I can't, I can't. So when we focus on these kind of things, these conversations, what we get, we always get the same kind of things. Our thought would be the same, our environment would be the same, our everything would be the same. So we need to change our conversation. And now what we can do to change our conversation, we need to change the words we use. We need to add the new words in our life. We always use the same words, same old words that we are using since our childhood. Now it's time to change the words. Now it's time to add some new words in our life so that our conversation can be changed. We are why we are always focusing on the things that is wrong happening in the world. If we change, if we're going to discuss, if we add the words, what positive is going on, and if we just change the word, use the other words, opposite words, the response would be the opposite. And in this way, we are changing our environment. Even if you're wherever and you are living, but if you apply this, your environment would automatically change. There might be some other things that happen around, but they wouldn't affect you, they wouldn't influence you as much as they influenced you earlier. Because now you have your own word and you are recognized with that. So for that, I suggest you, we need to read, we need to do the conversation on different topics, we need to listen the different audios, powerful audios, we have a lot. So we just need to change our activities. We can meditate. That's very important. And in this way, ultimately, our environment would automatically change. And then our thoughts would also change. And when our thoughts would change, similarly, everything would change. The responses, the result, everything would change if we just follow this single step. And on the other side, life is just a process of learning and unlearning. We always stuck with that. I also, like, I learned something. Don't worry if you learn something today. And in the future, if you got something better, I never say you hold with the learning that I shared today. You can adopt the new one because this life is a process of learning and unlearning. With the passage of time, things change. In this nature, there is nothing, something is just like hard fixed rule. In the nature, there are a lot of variations. Nature always love variations and accept that. There is a lot of ways to reach the one destination. There are a lot of ways to reach the one destination. So always, whenever you are getting something good, something upgraded, please unlearn the past one. Unlearn your past, unlearn the bad thing, and learn the new one. Their learning is important. Their also unlearning is important.
Thank you so very much, Asma. And I think everyone's going to be surprised to know that we only have 3 more minutes to this show. You guys have been wonderful, great content. Jeannie, I'm going to pass the mic to you before we wave goodbye. Do you have any last words you want to bring in? And remember, you only have about a minute.
Okay, I've got the Toastmaster timer on. Boom.
You're not going to let Victor talk?
I want to get to Victor too. Oh my gosh.
I think
Ladies
that
first.
I think that what I walk away from here is we have some work to do for ourselves on listening to ourselves and helping ourselves to make change. And that change will, this is a word a minister once used, out picture. What we see in our mind will out picture into the world. And it's like it's a projector, but it doesn't happen just like that. It takes some work. And that's what being an adult is. We have to be willing and able to do the work. And as Asma just said, changing the dialogue in your mind, changing the words can make a great deal of difference. Forgiving ourselves can make a great deal of difference. We have lights that need to be shining, not being dimmed. Victor, over to you.
As we spoke and as our conversation developed over the last hour, we have now come where everybody on the panel certainly agrees that most of us need to do the work on the inside. I am famous for truisms and sayings, and I live by them. You know, you see people, they post sayings, or they may repeat, they may quote someone in a talk, and it almost seems as though they forget about it after they say it. I don't want you to forget about this quote I'm going to leave you with, because it really coalesces everything that you have said for the last 10 minutes at least. And that is plainly and simply, self mastery is the only game in town.
And I totally agree. And the issue is most people don't realize that it's important to stop and get to know yourself and then give yourself out to the world with meditation and relaxation coming in to maintain that on a daily basis. And with that, we are going over. So we're going to wave goodbye. We will be back on Thursday, same topic, but different people, and it should be very good. Let's wave goodbye, everyone. Bye.